Programmable switchers on pedal boards. This is something that a ton of you have been asking about over the course of the last several years, and how to optimize your rig, presuming that you're going to be using something like an RJM, a Musicom Lab, a gig rig, a Boss switcher. And today we're going to be going into depth about how to optimize your rig for a switcher, and we're going to be collaborating with my friend Emily Wolfe, an amazing guitarist. Just came out with a great Epiphone signature guitar. I'm going to show you using her rig as the guinea pig. Let's get into it on how to optimize your rig using a switcher. Emily Wolfe, she's the guitar player with which we're going to be working with on this project today. And I was first introduced to her through this collaboration that she did with Gibson and with Guitar Center, where she was playing the original Eric Clapton ES-335 that he used with Cream. And she was getting some amazing tones and kind of talking about her approach. And I always remarked when I saw that video that it would be great to get a chance to work with her on a rig that was kind of in the rig doctor style of things, using our pedal boards, etc. Sure enough, some time passed and I heard from her management that they had watched a lot of our videos and that Emily really dug the content and was interested in having us build a pedal board for her. So we started this endeavor a couple of months ago, started planning, and then she drove out from Austin so that we could build this rig. Now, we built this thing over the course of 2 days, and we're really trying to give her something that was really optimizing based on a switcher. Now, Emily is a great pedal board builder on her own. In fact, the rig that she sent me as her exemplar to kind of start with was actually really pretty excellent. It used a Gator pedal board and a Gator case, and it was a little bit heavy, right around 60 pounds. And the real intent was just to take the work that she'd already done, consolidate it into a smaller pedal board using one of our pedal boards that's 26 by 14 with a hinged riser, and stashing some pedals underneath, using that riser to duplicate the surface above, and then really optimizing it to try to get as much of the weight off as possible and fitting it in kind of more of a standard Pelican SKB Gator style case. So what you're going to see today is all that optimization using the brain of the RJM PBC-10 as the thing that we're kind of using as the hub to build the entire board around, and really just trying to shave off weight, getting it to sound good, all soldered connections. So let's get into that. As with every rig, the holy trinity of tone is something that we always observe. If you're not familiar with what that is, you can definitely check out this video above where I go into more detail about exactly what that is, but just a brief overview. The first thing in the holy trinity tone is using high quality buffers. We accomplish that here using one of our DIY buffer interfaces. If you're interested in exactly how Emily's is routed, I'm going to publish a diagram and a detailed drill template below so that you're able to reproduce this exactly as hers is if you want to. Secondly, using a high quality isolated switch mode power supply. We're using the True Tone One Spot CS12 here. That's powering everything, and we're also paralleling a few pedals here. That means that we're sharing power between them. If you're wondering exactly how to do that, we have a great video that tells you how to determine what pedals are good candidates for sharing power versus getting their own, and you can check that out above as well. The third tenet of the holy trinity of tone is using high quality cables that are all soldered. Here we're using the exact same cables that are available on the rigdr.com, also from our friends over at Sweetwater, which are high quality Mogami 2319 soldered connections to SP400 and SPS4 connections from Square Plugs. That's being used throughout the pedal board. So let's talk about optimizing for power on a board with the switcher. It's really the same exact function that we normally do in terms of the sequencing. I like to start putting all of my cables into the pedals themselves with the molded end. I route those to the power supply, so everything is flowing in a single direction. I have a few different places where the power is coming from. I'm wiring that top row and the top tier. I'm doing a straight line coming across the inside of the riser, and you can see that nice straight line that's kind of following the entry and exit point on that riser. Equally on the main base level, I'm starting on one extreme at the very, very end with the buffered interface, and then I'm creating nice lines that are routing into the power supply and then re-terminating at the power supply. I'm using all of our Vertex DC power cables that are designed to take up to 24 volts and 1 amp of power per cable. So this is going to meet and satisfy all the needs, deliver all the voltages that we want exactly the same way as if I measured the DC and the voltage right off of the actual power supply itself. If you're interested in getting any of those customized voltage doublers, current doublers, you can check those out on the rigdr.com. After I've routed power, this is where it gets a little tricky. When you're using a switcher, you're basically having to double the amount of cables that you'd normally make. and staying organized is the real key here. What I always do is I solder one end of the audio cables first and leave a long length behind it. So typically at least 3 feet for a board this big. You can sort of determine the length of the cable based on the size of the pedal board. I usually take a cross section of how far it takes to get from one extreme of the pedal board to the other, and then maybe give myself a few extra inches of relief just in case, just to accommodate for any style of routing. After I've soldered that one side, I then mark on the opposite end with a piece of painter's tape what that's going to go to. So if that's a send for loop 1, I'll put send 1 on both sides so I know that each side of the cable is designated for send 1. I'll do the same for send 2, send 3, etc., and also all of the returns. So as I'm routing, I know exactly what that cable is corresponding to, so there's never any guesswork involved. The other thing I do, similarly to the power supply, is I start at one side and I work my way to the other. Now you could do this one of two ways. I like starting with all my plugs going into the actual source, so in this case the RJM PBC10, and then I like routing out all of my cables to the individual pedals. I've seen other people that like to do it all on the pedal end first, where they put all their cables into the pedals and then they route down to the PBC or whatever their switcher is in whatever case that may be. But in this case, I definitely just started with the actual PBC first. I routed all my cables, dressed them nice and neatly into each one of the pedals, and then I just soldered them one at a time. And what I also like to do is I like to wire all the parts going into the actual switcher. So in this case, I wired the buffer interface and the compressor, which is on all the time, into the input of the RJM PBC10. And then I wired all the effects on the output as well, in this case, which is the Flint and the Vertex Boost, and I wired that back to the interface. So then that way, as I started to assemble loops 1 through 10, I was able to test each one of them individually, and I made sure that I had continuity throughout. Because with switchers, you never want to get too far away before you start testing, so if you run into a problem, you don't have to troubleshoot too many different loops to try to figure out what it is. And for accessories and how I put all these cables down, if you're wondering how I do that, I'm using all of our Pedalboard Essentials kits, which you can purchase over on therigdr.com. Also from some of our dealers, including Sweetwater, you can get the exact same tools that I use in order to fasten these cables down so that we get these nice, beautiful runs. And they're designed to work in high humidity conditions, cold conditions, and they're gonna stay on your pedal board and are not gonna move around. Equally, we're using our Power Grip Velcro, which is our signature pedal board adhesive, across all the pedals. This is ensuring that everything is staying down and intact. And when Emily opens up this case, she's not going to find her pedals scattered across the case. This is going to ensure that they stay in place. And if she wants to move something up, she's not going to have any of that unsightly adhesive. This comes off really cleanly, goes on really cleanly, and gives you a really nice, stable contact with the pedal board surface for your pedals. So enough of me talking about the build and our process. I want to get Emily back in here so she can pick this thing up and get it back to Austin, but I want to hear her play for us a little bit first. She's got some great tones, she's got a great signature guitar. I'm really anxious to see what she thinks about it. This will be her first time seeing it in a couple of days, having been with us, having gone through the build. So this is going to be her kind of maiden voyage with the new rig. So let's get her in here, let's see what she thinks.
I'm so excited. Okay, here we go. Oh my God. God, that looks so good. Gee whiz. I'm one of these players now that I can lift up I'm one of those people. It's so awesome. So in my last board, I wasn't able to get my board this compact. I don't know why, it was just something that I didn't know how to do. But Mason got it to a great footprint, and now I have everything really close. So if I want to bend down and fiddle with the knob on the Julia, I don't have to go all the way over there, and it's so great. I can't believe he got all of these pedals on this board. Because my last board was 34 by 17, but we got it down to 24 inches by 16 inches. I'm just blown away that everything fits on this. And it looks so clean and it's so cool, everything's so immediate. So the in and out is in an interface box that Mason built for me. And you can go in and out to 2 amps, which is exciting because I love to do stereo amp. I love to do stereo amps. And you can go mono, which is great too if you can't, lift 2 amps. It's not always convenient to take 2 amps on the road. So that's great. I love the interface box. I love that all of the inputs and outputs are on the back. So now I don't have to worry about tripping over anything. Before it was like power cables out this way, out cables out this way, in is out this way. So it was this whole kind of web of, gotta step over something and so it was rough, but now everything's in the back. And then from the interface box, I go into the Cali 76 compressor, killer compressor. I really don't like to play without it, to be honest. So after that, I go into the RJM, and then from there, everything goes into loops 1 through 8. So the first thing in the loop is the Crybaby Q zone. So I'll throw that on. This is the Crybaby with an OCD into an EQ. So after the Q zone, I go into the Tentacle. I love the Tentacle. It's probably one of my favorite pedals because it's like the fattest octave I've ever heard in my life. So I'll put it before the gain stage, which without it sounds like this. That sounds better than it did. It's so nuts. I don't know how. Is it magic? Is it the ohm? It's the ohm thing. The one meg ohm thing. Anyway, so after that, after the Tentacle, I go into a dirt transmitter by Earthquaker Devices. This is like my favorite fuzz, but I'm EQing it as well. So the OCD has its own EQ pedal. So that's in loop 3. The pitchfork is in loop 4, and then the second gain stage is the dirt transmitter into an EQ. So both of these super important gain pedals are being EQ'd separately. I really like how this is set up too, because I couldn't ever reach my EQ pedal, and if I'm playing rhythm stuff and I don't want to stick out too much, I could just take my EQ pedal off really easily because it's right there. So with it on, so all those mids disappear. But if I could throw it back on if I want to do a solo real quick, Whew. That's so cool. The pitchfork is next. I like to kind of program this with some gain, and so we'll throw on the dirt transmitter with the EQ pedal into the pitchfork. What's next? The Klon. I use that on mostly like slower songs like Steady, or what else do I use this on? White Collar Whiskey, a lot of the stuff from my first record. Then there's a chorus and the delay. So the modulation is in the later loops. This is my favorite chorus, the Julia. And then the last thing in the loop switcher is the delay, which I've been using a Walrus D1. It's super cool. So great. So after that, I go out of the RJM into the Flint and then into the Vertex Boost. Vertex Boost. I'm so glad I got one of these. I've been looking at them on other people's boards and thinking how cool they look. And then now that I'm trying it, I'm thinking, this is the one. This is the master pedal. This is the one. So that's the pedalboard. That's a signal. And then it goes in back into the interface, and I can go out of that into 1 or 2 amps if I want. So this is a perfect little setup for me. I no longer have to drag around 60 pounds of pedalboard because this is 27. And now I just have to get an SKB case or a Pelican case, and I can check it on a plane and not have to pay an oversized baggage fee. Whereas before, that was the goal, is to get this down to size, and it's perfect. I love it. I am so grateful for this board. This is gonna really make my logistics so much easier. I won't be putting holes in my drywall anymore. I won't be having to repaint my walls anymore because I won't be hitting them on the way up my stairs with my massive pedalboard. So this is, I'm just so excited. I've been trying to get my board to look like this for a long time, but I didn't have the skills. I tried my best, but I couldn't make it work. And I'm so happy. I could not be happier about this. So thank you to Mason, the rig doctor, for fixing me. I'm cured.
So that was our rig build for Emily Wolfe. And again, really talking about techniques to optimize if you're using a programmable switcher like the RJM PBC10. If you enjoyed what you saw today, I highly recommend that you subscribe, put a comment below and tell us what one of your favorite parts of the build process was, or maybe one of the favorite pieces that Emily played in her demo today. Also, if you want to stay up to date with all the new stuff, make sure that you hit that bell icon. That'll send you reminders every time we come out with a new video. And if you want more extracurricular Vertex and Rig Doctor content, you can always go and check us out over on Patreon or over on our podcast, which is available on all the common podcatchers. And we do more longer form interviews and talk about pedalboard related stuff on there as well. And of course, you can get any of our gear, our accessories over on therigdr.com, or any of our pedals like the Vertex Boost here on Emily's pedalboard over at vertexeffects.com or from any of our authorized dealers. Until next time, I'm Mason Marangella from Vertex Effects, aka the Rig Doctor. See you later.